Hello, this is the luckiest maths teacher in the world, and today we're looking at inflation and GST. So we'll start with inflation. So what actually is inflation? It's actually just the price of goods going up or increasing. So what does that actually mean? Well, let's take something really simple that you might buy, like, 2 litres of milk. So this year it might cost you $3, but it might cost you a little more next year. And that increase in price is referred to as inflation. So when we're talking about inflation, what I think the ABS does is they look at all of the things that you would need to buy to live off, like food, perhaps some electronics that you need, petrol, things like that. And what they do is they observe the percentage increase in the price of all of those things. And they report it usually as a percentage, so they might say, inflation in 2016 is 1.2%. And what that means is the price of everything has generally gone up 1.2%. Now, this is just a bit of an average. It doesn't mean that the price of every single item has gone up 1.2%. So the price of milk might have gone up, 2%. Whereas the price of, an iPod or something may not have increased at all or something like that. So inflation is just a generalization to give us an indication about how much the price of things is increasing or decreasing. And it's very important for us to know. Too much inflation's bad. If milk costs $3 for 2 litres in 2017 and then it costs $30 next year, a lot of people... And, if that happened for a lot of goods, a lot of people would struggle to afford to live. But then on the other side of the coin, if the cost of milk was $3 for 2 litres this year and it went down, people were only willing to pay $2 a litre, then that would be bad and probably lead to a shortage of, in this case, milk, because businesses wouldn't produce it. I mean, why would you produce something this year that is going to be worth, less next year? They'd probably prefer to, invest in, make something else that's going to increase in price. So inflation is very important, but I'm not going to talk any more about the economics of it. I'm just going to talk about the maths, and you'll be relieved to know that all of the calculations we do just involve percentages like we've been doing in previous lessons. So let's look at an example. So the example here, car costs $20,000, prices increased by 5% next year, and how much would we expect to pay? The reason I said how much would you expect to pay is because if inflation was in fact 5%, it doesn't mean the price of everything will go up by 5%. As I said, that's just an average. But the average sort of means that we expect that the price of things will be 5% more next year. So this question is basically just asking us to take $20,000 and increase it by 5%. That's how much we'd expect to pay, even though the price of cars may not go up next year. The economics is a lot more complicated. So to increase $20,000 by 5%, that's easy as we know how to do that. 20,000 times 1 plus 5 over 100, increasing by 5%, we've done it heaps of times. And that will give us $21,000. So that's how much we expect. We expect that the car will cost $1,000 more next year. All right, let's look at another example. So here's another example of a question that you might get. So I'm telling you the inflation rate's 1.3%. Nathan's pay has increased from $80,000 to $81,000. Now, when I say have his wages increased according to inflation, I mean have his wages also gone up 1.3%. So the good side of inflation is that wages generally go up as well. Unfortunately, it's not always proportional. In some areas, you might be a doctor, your pay might go up 5%, whereas, retail workers, they might not get an increase of that's commensurate with inflation. But generally wages go up as inflation goes up. So this one is just asking you to find the percentage increase of Nathan's pay, and then you have to determine if it's more or less than 1.3%. So when I say that we want to find Nathan's percentage pay increase, remember, we don't know the percentage. So that's different than, say, this question here, we knew the percentage. We knew that it was 5%. So here we're finding it out, finding what the percentage is, so we do it a little differently. This is one quantity as a percentage of another. So his pay increase, I'm just going to write that as I, is $1,000 obviously. So to find what that is as a percentage, it's $1,000 divided by his original pay, $80,000, and then I times that by 100%. Now, if you put that on your calculator, you get 1.25%. That means Nathan's pay has increased by 1.25%. So have his wages increased according to inflation? No. So remember, maths, we're very precise. 1.25 is close to 1.3, but they're not the same thing. So have his wages increased according to inflation? No, his wages have increased less than inflation. Okay, so you can just put it in your own words. Basically, the answer is no. So now we're going to go ahead and look at GST. So please copy down these examples if you need them now. So GST stands for Goods and Services Tax. So this was introduced by John Howard government in 2000. So it is a tax of 10%. So let's look at an example to try and illustrate what this means a little further. Okay, so another example involving cologne because it's awesome. Say I want to make $180 for a cologne I'm selling. So if I'm a business and I'm selling cologne and I want to make $180, I can't just sell it for $180 because this tax means I have to give 10% of what I sell, 10% of the price to the government as a tax. I know, it's a bit of a rort, right? So if I want to make $180 for a cologne I'm selling, I need to sell it for more. So how much would I sell it? So if I want to make $180, I've got to include the tax I give to the government. So if I want to find the selling price, all I need to do is increase the amount of money I want to make by 10%. So you know that to increase something by 10%, you just take the quantity times it by 1 plus 10 over 100. So what I'm doing is I'm increasing 180 by 10% to get $198, right? So what that means is I will keep $180 like I wanted, but 10% of that, so 10% of $180 is of course just $18, goes to the government. So of the $198 I sell the cologne for, I get 180. The government gets 10% of that, which is it's $18. Okay, so that's how GST works. And if you are asked, if you're told of a selling price of something and you have to add 10% GST onto that, it's a very simple calculation, just like we did here. You just take the amount and times it by 1 plus 10 over 100, increase it by 10%. So now I've just got to do one more example, and this will be where you know the final price, like the $198, but you need to figure out how much is GST. So let's draw a little picture to show it. So let's say that X dollars is how much I want to make. So this is going to be the price before GST. It was like the 180 in the last one. So if that's X dollars, that's the amount of money that I'm going to get from selling something, I need to add 10% of X. So 10% of something is the same as 0.1x, because 0.1 and 10% are the exact same thing. And this whole thing is going to be the selling price. That is going to be the price that is displayed in a shop, because if you go to a shop and you see, a price tag of $200, it already includes GST. It must include GST. Unlike in America, where they don't include sales tax. You have to pay it in addition to what it says on the price tag. So let's just add these two things together. So the amount that I'm selling it for is the amount I want, X, plus 10% of X for GST, so I need to sell it for 1.1x, because remember, this is just 1x. 1 plus 0.1 equals 1.1. So I need to sell it for 1.1 times however much money I want to make. So this is the total selling price. So if I wanted to know the price before GST, and I know the selling price, I want to go from 1.1x to x. So to do that, I divide by 1.1. So what I'm doing is I'm just telling you why that if you know the final price, the selling price that includes GST, if you want to find the price before GST, then you just divide by 1.1. So please don't fall into the trap of thinking, okay, let's say something costs $100. Oh, cool, 10% of that will be GST. That's not right. If something costs $100, it isn't $10 GST and $90 for the people selling it. It isn't that easy, unfortunately. Because if it was $100 overall, and let's say I got 90 and the government got $10, well, actually, this doesn't work because 10 is not 10% of 90, it's actually 11.1% of 90. So you can't just divide by 10, you can't just find 10% of something to find the GST. So how you find the GST? So the GST was 0.1x. That was the GST component. So the selling price is 1.1x, and I want to reduce that to 0.1x. I want to change that to this part here if I want to find the GST. So the way I do that is dividing by 11. Okay, so sorry if that was confusing. I just wanted you to try and understand. If you did find that confusing, all you have to know is that I divide by 1.1 to find the price before GST, and I divide by 11 to find how much of it was actually GST. So I'll do a quick example. Please pause and copy this down if you need it. Okay, so we'll just do this quick example. So let's say something sells for $100. I want to know the price before GST and how much GST is included. So again, you can't just find 10% of $10 and say, okay, cool, 10% GST, $10 is GST. So the price before GST. So how do I figure that out? Well, I just told you on the previous slide that what you do is you take the selling price and you divide by 1.1. So if you put that in your calculator, you get 90.909090. So when we're dealing with money, we round it to 2 decimal places. So the price before GST is 90.91, which means if I sell something in a business for $100, I keep $90.91 of it. The actual GST is just found by dividing by 11. So if you do 100 divided by 11, 9.0909, again, round it to 2 decimal places. So if I sell something in Australia for $100, that's how much I keep, and this is how much the government keeps. So just follow those simple rules. If you know the selling price, divide by 1.1 to find the price before GST, and divide by 11 to find the actual amount of GST. Sorry for the long video. Hope you've enjoyed it though. This has been the luckiest maths teacher in the world. Have a great day.